So, welcome back to a new edition of Rugspirations, where we interview rug makers from all over doing all different kinds of rugs. And today we have a special guest from Florida. Good morning. It's Eleanor Langlois meeting with us and sharing a little bit about her journey with rug hooking. Good morning, Eleanor.
Good morning, Robin. It's an honor to be on your program.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We'll get right into my questions. As the viewers that have watched other interviews know, I ask the same basic questions and they just take us where they take us. And so the first one I always want to know is who or what got you started into rug making?
Well, to begin with, I've really always known about hooked rugs because I had a grandmother who hooked rugs. And when I was growing up, I always spent a week each summer with each set of grandparents. When I stayed with this grandmother, she taught me to knit, crochet, tat, and if she had a rug in progress, she would let me pull up a few loops on her rug. So I knew that you poked the hook in and you pulled up a loop and you tried to make it even and so on. That was all I knew about it. And fast forward to about 2012, I'm not sure of the exact date. I'm very active in the Sarasota chapter of the Embroiderers Guild of America. And one of my embroidery friends called me and said that she had a neighbor who embroidered and hooked rugs. And that neighbor, for health reasons, needed to get rid of her stash. She was going to move. Would I come and pick it up? And I said, well, I'll come and get the embroidery. So I went to the neighbor's house and she had invited two of my embroidery friends to join us. And we had a delightful afternoon. And at the end of it, she said she really wanted me to take the hooking supplies as well as the rug hooking, as a embroidery.
Yeah.
So I brought it all home and I started looking at the hooked items. There were 7 chair pads. One was completely finished. The other 6 had the designs done, but not the background. And there was a beautiful Chinese rondelet rug, 36 inches in diameter. The center was done. Enough of the border was done so that I knew where the colors went.
Okay.
And I looked at it and said, I'm not giving this to Marge. I'm going to hook it myself. So I did. I called a woman whom I knew who taught rug hooking. I had all of the supplies I needed. They had all been given to me with this wonderful supply.
Wow.
All of the background wool was there. I had a Fraser cutter, a hook, a pair of scissors, an old-fashioned frame, the wooden kind that you tacked the rug on,
Yep.
a box of tacks, and a stubby screwdriver, which I assumed was to remove the tacks from the frame. So I took my supplies and I went to Anne's house and she gave me a lesson in rug hooking. She gave me a used Puritan rug frame and I was able to put my chair seat on that. And at the end of an hour, she said, you don't need any more lessons. You're a natural. Go home and hook.
Yeah.
So I did. I think it took me 2 years to finish those chair seats. You have to realize I was hooking with a 3-cut with
Wow.
beige wool. And it was a little boring.
Yeah.
So I joined a group that met on Thursdays. And every Thursday, I took my current chair pad and my hooking supplies and went and hooked on that background, but I didn't do much of it at home.
Yeah.
When I finished the chair pads, I finished hooking the rug. And then I went on from there.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a good, I mean, a significant commitment to make. All like 6 is a lot of chair pads and a lot of beige and a lot of 3-cut for a new rug hooker. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that takes some perseverance. Were you excited to try other patterns right away? Or were you just like, I just want to finish this?
Oh, oh yes. Yes, I immediately bought another rug pattern. And it was a pattern of asters and acorns and oak leaves.
Nice.
And I started hooking it. And one of my Thursday hooking friends said, I don't like those leaves. They just look like blobs. And she brought me a diagram of a leaf and how to hook it.
Oh.
But another rug hooker on Thursday who didn't know about this conversation looked at my rug and said, I love the way you're hooking those leaves. So I decided I'll hook them the way I like them.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they're my leaves.
Which is such a good lesson because, I mean, how often do we think, or have this feeling like everybody's going to love this? And of course, nobody, like nothing you do is going to be liked by everybody. That's just impossible. So it's perfectly normal that one would be like, oh, no, do it this way. And another one's like, oh, these are perfect.
Right.
So you learned that lesson early on in
I
your
did.
hooking. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did.
Which is great. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And so do you have all those chair pads now on your, around your dining room or kitchen table?
I have them all on chairs.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Um, do you have a favorite part of the process? Like some people, it's the planning and the picking colors or the finishing and sitting back and enjoying it. Or some people, it's the shopping and collecting supplies. If you had to pick one, is there something that stands out as your favorite part?
Probably the finishing, because
Oh,
with most of the rugs I've hooked, I have a specific spot where I'm planning to put them. I
okay.
have all tile floors, so the rugs look great on them.
Yeah.
And as I say, I usually hook a rug with a specific spot in mind to place it. And so I can't wait once I start hooking a rug, I can't wait to get it finished so I can put it on the floor in that spot.
In that
There
spot.
have been a couple of rugs that I walked around the house with and tried them here and tried them there, and finally found a location where they fit. But most of them have been hooked for a specific location. And I put all my rugs on the floor. My
Right.
rugs all get walked on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have any wall space left. I've been stitching and painting for years and I don't have any walls. So my rugs have to go on the floor.
They have to, yeah. Well, I hope you have lots of floor space then.
Oh, I do.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, I'm curious, what do you put under your rug or do you put anything so it doesn't
I
fall on your
I go to
tile?
Lowe's and I buy a rug backing,
Okay.
so rubberized rub backing, and I cut that to fit under the rug.
Okay. And you just put that first and then your rug. You don't sew them
Yes.
together.
No.
No. Okay. Well, I ask because people often ask me, and I have dogs, and so a lot of mine don't go on the floor. So I'm always curious, would people do that, especially on a tile floor? You don't want to slip.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. And you're one of the few actually that says the finishing when I've done interviews or asked people this question. There's very few that say the finishing is their
Well, it
favorite.
spurs me on to get the rug done.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Excellent. Is there something that you wish you'd learned sooner in your rug hooking journey, or something that you tell new rug hookers when you're meeting with them about, oh, I wish I knew this, so I'm sharing it with you?
Yes, this winter I've been teaching 3 people to hook. And in doing so, I've been rereading my rug hooking books, looking for things that would help them with
Mhm.
any specific problem they're having. And one thing that I'm sure I had read before, but it didn't sink in, is that you should never start hooking in a corner
Mm,
because that's a weak spot.
yeah.
But when I hook, and I do start often in a corner, but when I do, I pull up a tail and then I go back and pull up a loop behind it.
Okay.
Then I pull up another loop beyond the tail. So I think maybe that helps to strengthen that corner. So maybe I haven't been doing such a poor job as I thought when I first read that.
Yeah.
And another thing that I read recently and that I rather question, when I first started hooking, I'm sure I was told to hook on the line when I was hooking a pattern. I recently read that you should hook inside the line.
Mm,
Um, I was listening to Chris Sherman at Searsport Rug teaching a new hooker recently, and Chris said she hooks on the line. So I think you need to know your designer to know
yes.
whether you should hook on the line or inside the line. And if you're
Mhm.
not sure, ask them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting actually because I haven't taught a beginner class recently, but I do know that that question comes up and I always have to pause and think about what do I do? And for me, it depends on the rug. Um, because yeah, if you hook on the line, that's fine if the pattern allows for it to stretch a little bit, like your design will grow. If you hook outside the line, then absolutely your design is going to change because
Right.
the dimensions will change. Um, but I think my answer to it too is whatever you do is stick with it.
Yeah.
Because if you start going inside the line in some places on the pattern and then on the line in other parts of that same design, you potentially are going to change the design. Yeah. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, that's a good one to think about though, because I often don't think about it until somebody else asks. And to me, if you're doing people, when you're doing
Oh, yeah.
people, definitely inside the line, because you don't want to stretch those dimensions of, that's why eyes end up being.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's interesting. And no, I think you're doing the corners right. Like you're doing a double back or,
Right.
so yeah, it's not the same as just pulling up that tail right in the corner and leaving it sort of to be at risk. um, do you have a favorite sort of foundation cloth or material or tool that you're like, oh, if I didn't have this, I don't know if I'd want to be hooking?
Definitely. And
Oh,
my favorite is my frame. I have an octagonal frame that rotates and swivels, and I love it. I still have my Puritan frame, and I use that if I'm hooking a wide area and perhaps hooking a straight line, a beauty line,
yeah.
or the line around the outside of the rug. Then I put it on my Puritan because I have a larger surface. But if I'm doing other hooking, I prefer the frame that rotates.
Right. And do you know what brand or what company your rotate one
I
is?
do. It's the Needleworker in Connecticut.
Okay.
They
Because
advertise in the rug hooking magazines and so on.
yeah.
And I love that frame.
Wow. I have a friend who has one that swivels too. And often I look over with admiration and maybe a little envy. And I'm hooking a rug that has circles on it. And last night I was sort of finding myself like, oh, I wish I had an easy swivel because that would have been very nice. So yeah, I might have to look at Needleworks. And do you use only wool or do you use only linen? Do you have a preference for those types of materials?
I use only linen for the backing. Um, it depends what I'm hooking. I have used alternative fibers. And on one rug this past fall, I did a dragonfly in a very sparkly fabric. And I worry a little about how it will hold up in the rug. But the rug is in a location where it's not going to get a lot of heavy traffic. So I think it will be fine. And
Yeah.
I have hooked things like footstools and used alternative fabrics on some of those.
Okay. Fun, fun.
It's fun to work with different fabrics.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I love it. Um, can you describe or articulate what rug making does for you? Like, why do you keep doing it or come back to it?
I think rug hooking can be very creative.
Hmm.
You you buy a flat pattern from a designer, but then you choose the fabrics, you choose the colors, you choose the size of the cut that you're going to use. All of those are your decision. They make the rug your own.
Mhm.
You choose the way in which you're going to hook it. You choose the height of the loops. You choose whether you're going to use Waldoboro or beading or any other techniques. Um, in that way, you make the rug your own. And
Mhm.
just handling the fibers satisfies something creative in a person, I think. You know, when you go into a fabric store, you feel the goods, don't you?
Yeah.
You have to go in
Oh,
and
yeah.
touch them. You have to feel if they're silky, if they're satiny, if they're rough. Well, that's the same thing that you're doing when you're hooking a rug. You're
Mhm.
feeling the fabrics, you're
Yeah.
touching them. It's a tactile stimulation.
Mhm. And you'd mentioned that you do a lot of or have done a lot of embroidery. Is that something you continue to do as well? Do you still
Oh yeah,
imprint? You
yes, but I don't do it as much as I do rug hooking now. And I think I was thinking about that this morning. I think it's because when I do an embroidery pattern, I pretty much have to follow what the designer has set as far as the techniques go.
Mm,
If I'm stitching something that is going to be made into a box, for example, I have to follow the directions pretty carefully in order to be sure that the dimensions will be right.
right.
When I'm hooking a rug, I can add a border. I often ask the designer to put the design on a larger piece of fabric than is necessary so that I have the option of adding a border.
Mhm.
But when I'm embroidering, I can't always do that.
Right, right. And it's interesting because do you always purchase patterns or do you sometimes design your own as well?
I'm afraid I'm a rather humdrum stitcher. I usually buy the pattern, but I often change a flower
Mm.
or may alter some other part of the design. And I like to add a border, and I often do that. I look at old rugs to see what the old borders are like. And um, for example, I hooked a small ship rug. I had seen a finished rug pictured that had a sort of chain all the way around it.
Oh,
So I hooked a little ship rug from Searsport, and I asked Chris to put it on large enough backing so that I could make a chain all the way around it. Then I had to figure out how I was going to hook the chain, but I did, and I'm very pleased with the way it came out. I have another rope on which I hooked a rope border. I studied my rug hooking magazines, found pictures of ropes,
yep.
and figured out how I could hook a rope border around it. And in other rugs, I might hook stripes or scallops or something like that. But I like to add a border around the rug.
That doesn't sound humdrum to me at all. That sounds like fun. And I'm also curious then, because at the beginning you said, with your chair pads, you mainly only hooked when you went to group on Thursdays. Now, do you find yourself hooking at home happily or?
I hook at home every night for about 2 hours.
Okay. And
Once in a while I have time to hook a little in the daytime, but usually I hook for about 2 hours at night.
night. Okay.
And I hook all day Thursday at Searsport.
I was going to say, and you still go to Searsport because that's
Oh
where
yeah.
you and I met. Wow, that is awesome. So you shared a photo with me, and I know it's hard. And for people, if they're just watching the first one, I only ask for one rug. So I know it's hard to choose. And I'm going to pull that one up so we can talk about it. Here, this is such a different rug than I've seen so many hookers make. So I'm excited to hear about it. What can you tell us? Does it have a name, first of all?
I'm sorry, what was that last question?
Does it have a name? Does the rug have a name?
Oh yes, yes. This is a copy of an antique hand-woven coverlet. It's called Antique Coverlet, and it's from Julie Thomas at the Old Tattered Flag. And if you look at it closely, I chose this pattern, I chose this rug to send to you because it is done in a very different fashion. Every loop on this rug was counted. If you look at the upper left-hand corner,
Yep.
see that little white box in the upper corner?
Yep.
Can you see it has 3 white loops across the top?
Yep.
And 3 loops down.
Yep.
Every square in this rug that is in that particular design
Motif. Yep.
has the same number of loops across and down.
Yeah.
If you go over to the first solid blue rectangle.
The big one here?
No, well, all right, talk about that one.
Okay.
That one, I believe, has 39 loops across the top.
Wow.
And I don't remember how many loops down, but if you look at it, it has the same number of loops going down in every row. And that same block on the rug in every spot has 39 across and the same number down.
Wow.
It's a very, very disciplined rug.
Yeah.
The same friend that didn't like my leaves on my first rug came to me at the end of my first day at Searsport when I was first working on this rug and said, "Are you bored yet?" And I said, "No, I'm not bored at all. It's fascinating." And she said, "I would be so bored working on a blue and white rug with no other color in it." But it wasn't, to me, it wasn't the least bit boring. You had to count everything you did.
Wow. Now, did you draw this pattern or did it come on the linen?
It came on the linen, and along with it, there was a paper diagram with the number of loops that you had to put in each block on it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just trying to process. I'm not sure my brain could do that.
Oh, it could. It could.
Well, one of the things I've often said about rug hooking is, because I was a knitter before, is one of the things I love about hooking is I don't have to count. But I kind of, this is so beautiful and interesting that I feel like it would be worth it. Like you said, like the challenge um, would be enough to make it interesting and keep me motivated to try. So yeah, it might be something I'm going to have to do. Um, Now, the other question what I had when looking at this is sometimes you have like some of your lines are horizontal or it seemed to be hooked, or am I imagining that? Is that just how it looks on my screen? Like some are vertical
Some
and
of those very narrow lines, I think I did have to do in a horizontal way in order, because otherwise it would have been a tail, a loop, a tail, a tail, a loop, a tail.
right.
So I think those I did hook across.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like an inch mat that you would see someplace like when they do reverse, but I didn't see it in all of them. So I thought, I wonder if that was anyway, it is just so stunning. So stunning. Um, yeah. And how big is this rug? Did you say?
Well, I'm guessing, I don't know, I don't remember the exact dimensions, but roughly 24 by 42 or something of that sort.
Okay. I know it's hard, especially for I remember seeing it, so I had a rough idea, but for people on the internet, it's on your computer screen, it never does it justice when you're trying to imagine the size of it. And how long would a rug like this take you?
Well, I hooked this last spring and it took me between 2 and 3 months, I would say. I hooked 4 rugs last year, all approximately the same size.
Wow.
So
Yeah, it is beautiful. Was there anything else you wanted to share about this rug?
the only other thing I would say about it is that it didn't occur to me when I was hooking it, but after I had it finished and on the floor, I thought, I wish I had put a border on it.
Oh, and what kind of border would you put on it though?
On this, I would have done 3 or 4 solid rows of blue all the way around it.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I could see
that
that.
didn't even occur to me until I had the rug on the floor.
Isn't that funny how that happens too, eh? Yeah. Would it be a rug that you would do again? Like, are you the type that likes to redo ones you've enjoyed?
Probably would not redo this rug again. Right now, I'm hooking a companion piece to it. It's
Oh,
another coverlet pattern called Ohio coverlet, and it's done in the same colors with a little red added. And that rug does have a border. This rug is on one side of my bed. The Ohio coverlet will be on the opposite side of the bed. So I wanted it to be similar, but I'm not hooking it in this disciplined style. However, I have hooked some of the patterns from this rug in other rugs
yes.
because I
Well,
enjoyed hooking them.
yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
doing a rug that had rectangles in it. And so I hooked some of the patterns from this rug in that rug.
Yeah. Well, I
And
was
I
just
counted
thinking
them.
it would make such like one of those patterns, like any one square you could take and would make a fantastic border. Um,
Right.
on a totally different style rug. The design could be different. I'm doing this, like I mentioned, a circle rug, and I'm thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fun to put squares on the border, like
Right. It
these?
would.
Um, yeah, very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much. Now, do you dye as well? Like, is that one of part of your process that you?
No.
No.
I used to, I also make baskets. And before I moved to Florida, I used to dye reed for baskets. And when I moved to Florida, I said, I'm not dyeing anything anymore.
And do you still make baskets?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do. So let me see if I know embroidery, painting, rug cooking, baskets. What are we missing?
I
Are
think
there,
that's it.
that's it. That's enough, I think.
It is.
Yeah, yeah, it keeps you busy. That's awesome. Absolutely
Oh,
awesome.
I, I do a lot of genealogical research also.
Oh, wow. Wow. Fascinating. Fascinating. Um, and what do you think your grandmother would be thinking now, seeing you hooking all these years later?
I think she would be pleased.
Yeah. Do you remember what her rugs looked like? Like, did she have a certain style that you remember?
She did many geometrics and many scenes,
Okay. Yeah.
barn scenes, that sort of thing, and many geometric rugs. I
Did,
think her geometrics were done to use up
Mm,
leftovers,
yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Eleanor. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you and see that gorgeous rug again. It was just beautiful. I hope we get to meet again. We got to meet in Searsport in Florida when I got to go this winter, which was so much fun for me. I hope you had fun too.
I did, and I loved your class.
Oh, thank you. It is such a neat experience to get to go when like I do most of my stuff online, like my interactions with other hookers is online, and then to get to meet in person like that was pretty cool. And to see and touch, like you said, the tactile experience of rug hooking is such a important part of it that we just don't get to touch each other's stuff when we're online.
Right.
Um, so thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to speaking again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.